This is the website for the Day Trading Visual Basics system. It's a stock trading system, and it is a system that was designed under the premise of reversal recognition. We can find gaps before the gap occurs. No one that I'm aware of out there is able to do this or has a system that claims to do this. And we can do a number of other things in relation to the strength of a market push, market force or market pressure, however you want to think of it. But the system is designed was designed with that premise in mind. And obviously gaps are a fast cycle turnaround, and the strength of a market in indicators can be determined through indicator line length. The system has three particular powers that we call them. They're the indicator power, which is a group of very sensitive indicators, and this is really the heart of the system, because over 10 years ago, in 2007, I started developing indicators just for my own use at that time, but now we are sharing them. And those I probably built over close to 1,400 indicators. Today we only use 22 market force recognition indicators. Seven more are part of the three groups that make up the short-term trend lines, and then there are several different upper and lower bands on the candle chart, the long-term trend chart, the long-term trend line on the candle chart, and there's two other lines for special use, swing gray and swing blue. The 5 charts or 5 subcharts on the master chart, when you open up the platform at TradeStation, are the price chart, the trend chart, the zip chart, the power chart, and the swing chart. 22 of the 40 total indicators that we built, or that we use rather, are the MFR, market force recognition indicators. And it's these indicators that give us the information that effectively can tell us when the strength of a market is going to be, a strength of a movement is going to be strong, or in the case of gaps, when the gap is going to occur. And the gaps occur, or let me back up a little. In 2007, I started trading, or I made my first electronic trade at home on my computer. As an adult, I'd never made any trades prior to that. I was a real estate developer in the state of Minnesota, a small developer, and in late 2006, even though I had done that for several decades and sold real estate for a couple of decades prior to that, the banks stopped funding small developers like myself. And so I was forced to consider looking at some other things. And I started dabbling in trading stocks because of the convenience on my computer at home initially. But the first trade that I made, I thought the market was, or that the stock was going to go up. I had no indicators built. I had nothing to go on except that mental belief that the stock was going up. And that's a trap that I talk about in some of the videos on the website about how we get into traps and we think we're okay and we don't want to go outside the box and everything is fine, don't bother me, and those ideas. And as a result, a few weeks later, I had a few indicators built and I thought I had a better system, and then months later I had more indicators built and I thought with each new indicator I had a new system built, and it turned out there was nothing more than sensitive indicators. I didn't have a system. A fair amount of time later, I discovered that there were patterns, patterns and conditions and signals. And these were indicator line arrangements. Today we have we have a group of pattern types up and pattern types down, and there are more than 20 in each group. The three-step formula, or the formula power of the system, is taking the patterns, the conditions, and the signals, finding a pattern, locating a good condition within that pattern, and then using a signal to identify the time to purchase that pattern. By example, take 10 opportunities. Maybe they're 10 red spikes. That's the name of one of our patterns. You can have 10 patterns that end up you can have 2 of the 10 patterns end up in nice long green candles, 5 or 6 in small green candles, and maybe 2 or 3 in a red candle. And so what I've just described to you are bad conditions, poor conditions, and good conditions. The two patterns that ended up at the end of the day with nice green candles were those 2 patterns with good conditions. We take and when we trade, we only trade with patterns, and we find the patterns with the best conditions or the good conditions that support stronger movements. And I say stronger relative to the last few days is what we're trying to find. And so those patterns, conditions, and signals in the 3-step formula became the essence for what we have identified as high probability trades. The ratio, the percentage rates of high probability trades that we have is very high. And the reason is because we handpick those conditions in the pattern that we trade. And so the result is that we trade only high probability trades every single time. There's no guesswork in it. We always pick one of the 20 patterns in one of the 20 groups, and we try to find the pattern with good conditions. We've got lists identifying the rules of those patterns and what patterns and what conditions make up good conditions for each specific pattern. And as a result of that, it's a system that can show you turnarounds, cycle tops or cycle bottoms, reversal patterns, whatever name you might want to give to it. And the reason we initially started on these reversal patterns is because we recognized that the strength of a movement was oftentimes right at the beginning of the movement. And the easiest way, or the most simple explanation for that is to take you see a group of candles come down and then start back up. Now just think of the lines that the indicators represent. They go down and they start back up. And that very first day that they start up is a V-shaped pattern, and it's also called a BOC, or a bottom of cycle pattern. And that bottom of cycle pattern is the first, is the initial start to a uptrend. Now, that BOC pattern can be lower or higher. If the right leg of the pattern is lower than the left leg of the pattern, it does not have much strength. If the right leg is higher than the pattern, than the left leg, then we have more strength. And so on the very first day that we identify a cycle change, we can also identify the strength in the market push. And that strength, not always, but many times, moves that stock into higher prices for a number of days, however the trend lasts. Typically, trends will last 3 to 5 days, but there's always turnarounds. And we can see those turnarounds in those patterns that we talk about. We analyze every single, if you've made a decision to continue in a pattern, we can look and see if we've got continuation patterns that would justify that idea. The patterns that we have within this high probability format give us the ideas that evolved into the 3 pattern condition, or 3 gap pattern condition that we talk about when we're discussing gaps. There are basically, what we've got when we identify and find a gap is that we have 3 patterns: the identical patterns, the down touch patterns, and the proximity group patterns, which are the power 4. The identical patterns are shape patterns. Like, for example, a BOC is a shape, or a top of cycle, TOC, is a shape. A right leg W, if you think of a W that has the right leg higher than the left leg, that is a right leg W higher pattern. That pattern almost always goes up. Even generically, without good conditions, it has a tendency to go up much more often. And there are other shapes that we deal with in many different ways. Now, those shapes are in the proximity group, are in the identical indicators group and the proximity group, which is the power 4, pink, blue, white, and yellow. And in that consideration of the proximity group is power Zion. So there's actually 5 lines in the power chart that we look at when we're looking at the 3 gap patterns. There are 7 patterns that possibly you might think of 8 when you look at it, because I have 8 drawn out, but there's really just 7 different types. But anyway, there's 7 different shapes that we have within the pattern group, or the power 4 group. There are also about as many, maybe a few more, in the identical indicators. Now, what this means is that out of the 22 market force recognition indicators, you can have a majority, 12 out of the 22, in an identical pattern. They're all in a BOC pattern, for example. This is referred to as a one pattern group in the identical pattern category. You have 2 and 3 patterns as well. I've seen 4 and 5 patterns, each having 2 or 3 in each group. And as a result of that, we still got a nice gap. The formula for the gap is that all 3 of those patterns must have the required conditions in them simultaneously in order for a gap to occur. If 2 out of the 3 occur, then you'll get something smaller than that. Like you'll get a uptrend, or you'll get two nice green candles the next day. Sometimes you'll get a real small candle the following day, and then the second day you'll get the real big green candle. The down touch category, or the down touch indicator, is within the trend chart. There are 3 fast lines, trend red, green, and gray, and there are 3 slow lines. Those slow lines are the trend trio, pink or yellow, pink, blue. And they are also the group 1 out of the 7 short-term trend lines. Power orange and green are the other group, and swing red and green are the third group. Those 7 lines tell us what the short-term trend is. The fast lines, like the trend red and green, gray, the zip red and gray, in fact, all of the lines are in the zip chart. There's a reason why we call them the zip lines. And there are other lines, like for example, swing pink and zip red are probably the 2 quickest moving lines in the system. Although zip red moves has much greater line length than swing pink. Now, all that being said, you've got the indicators. What you want to have in the indicator group, the identical indicator group, is you want to have 12 or more, either in a 1, 2, or 3 pattern that has a total of 12 or more indicators in that. That then qualifies as a condition for the gap to occur. Keep in mind, no gap will occur unless you have all 3 conditions met in each of the 3 patterns. The gap down pattern requires that a gap down occur in by one of the 3 lines, trend red, green, or gray, within the trend chart. And keep in mind, probably 75 to 80%, maybe 85% of all all down touches occur in the trend chart. This is, for example, when trend red goes down and comes right on top of the trend blue line, that's a down touch blue line. Trend red, down touch the blue. The 3 fast lines, trend red, green, and gray, can down touch the 3 trio lines, that's the blue, pink, and yellow, or it can down touch 0, or it can down touch an area under 0. So it can actually make 5 down touches. The down touch under 0 has no line to hit. It just hits the area under 0. It can be anywhere, just barely under, or it can be 15, 20 points under. The difference is, the signal is that when it goes down under 0, it crosses 0, and that's the signal. On the day that it crosses 0, it will reverse back up. If it doesn't, it's obviously in a continuation pattern. But when trend red, green, or gray down touch one of those 5 lines, that qualifies as a down touch, and the stock kin gap. The third area is the proximity group. It's basically the power 5. I've called it the power 4, which is the pink, blue, white, and yellow, plus the power Zion, which is the which is the line that is divergent to the other four lines. There are two types of divergence. The dividing line is the wide line or the slow-moving line, power orange. We specifically use power orange for a reason, because it moves much more slowly than power green. Because power green goes up and crosses under the orange line. So when the power 4 is above 0 and the power Zion is under 0, that's divergence, and it will often cause a gap up. When the power 4 lines are down and the power Zion line is divergent by being up, that is divergence. And the power Zion line can be above 0, above orange, or under either one. But the direction is divergent. And so that qualifies as its ability to gap up if all the other conditions are met, if the conditions in the other two patterns are met. Now, in addition to that, the power 4 must appear in one of those 7 or 8 patterns that I talked about. Basically the BOC, the TOC, and the rest are on that list that you will see in the proximity group document. Those are the conditions. All 3 of them must occur. If you don't get a down touch in the trend chart, believe me, 9 out of 10 times you will have no gap. In fact, you can have a tiny candle as a result, because a large number of indicators, up to 22, is just that. It's a large number of indicators. But just like the force that you recognize power from a BOC pattern, if you got 10 BOC indicator lines and all 10 of them are in a BOC higher pattern, you've got recognizable strength in the market force push of day 1, which is a strong indication that you will have a strong uptrend. And by that I mean either in 1 or 2 green candle days, or 5 to 7 days of small green candles going up. You can't tell what the power is at that point. You can just tell that it's going to go up. And the end result is, if you get 2 nice green candles, it's probably gone up as far as it would in 5 to 7 days of 5 or 7 green candles. Not always, don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but that's just generic ideas behind what I'm referring to. That, in the essence, is what drives the day trading visual basics system. I started out wanting to have consistency in my trading. I did not anticipate sharing this system when I started in 2007, but today we decided when we were building it and redesigning it for others that we had to have a simple system, we had to have a basic system, and we had to have a system that was easy to use. The procedures power is when you take those 10 patterns that you found and you analyze the conditions on them, and you find 2 out of 10 are good, and then you get ready to buy one of those the next day or whenever. That analysis, that examination, that verification, that comparison analysis is what was one of the primary conditions that we mentally mandated as a part of the system when we were building the system. We deemed it necessary that you could look at the market and look at through the indicator glasses and see the market forces and the market pressures driving the stock. I mean, You can talk about the location of the indicators. You can talk about the location, the direction of the indicators. You can talk about the angle of the indicator lines. There are many different facets to understanding the sensitive indicators. But as I said before, the indicators are the heart of the system. Without the indicators, we never would have seen the patterns and the conditions. And without the patterns, conditions, and signals, patterns and conditions and signals are nothing more than indicator lines telling us something. But they're very sensitive indicator lines. That's why we can, because of the sensitivity, we can see things that you just can't see on regular default indicators like on TradeStation or on candles. You just can't see movements in those. Sometimes we have one indicator that just is so obvious and the others are just barely there. But that one indicator gave us the information to make a absolutely fabulous trade. So in essence, that's what the system is about. It is a very sensitive system with great indicators. We only took 22 out of 12 to 1,400 that we initially started working on and tested and eliminated, and so we don't know of anyone out there that's trading gaps. There are many people trading gaps. They wait for the open, they find one that gapped down or up really far, and then they say, let's trade it. And obviously, because it's got a lot of volatility, they think that through that volatility, they then can follow the pattern or follow the stock in a certain way and make money. And obviously, that's true. But we don't know of anybody that finds gaps before the gap even occurs. We don't know of anyone that can show you the strength of a market push in any system. There are a few systems that have signals. We've seen that, but we don't recognize anyone to have the depth and the capability of recognizing the strength of a market force like DTVB. And I tell you, there's a lot of competition out there, and you want the ability to have the capability of having the power to compete, and that's one thing that's very important. And we're excited about this system. We feel it's the best on the planet. We would encourage you to look at more videos. You will be absolutely amazed. It's contrary to some of the things that you've heard discussed. You can talk to stockbrokers, you can talk to IRA people, you can talk to financial wizards. Oh, you can't. You don't know what the stock market is going to do tomorrow. And basically that's true. There's only I'm going to guess, maybe 20 to 40% of the stocks on a daily basis that we can tell you which direction the stock is likely to go. We can't do that on every single stock every single day because the strength in the turnaround is not there, or the strength in the continuation pattern is not there. And so our ability to recognize what's going to happen in the vast majority of cases, we can't. But there is a high number of stocks that we can show you each and every day what is going to happen simply because they have a higher amount of strength in the push that's taking place. So, encourage you to listen to more videos. I think you'll be amazed when you do. You'll be inclined to investigate further. And whatever you do, we encourage you to have fun trading. If you're not having fun trading, get out, because it's. I had an absolute great time selling real estate for 20 years, and then for almost 20 years developing real estate, and it was fun. And so too is this. You got to find something that's fun to do in your life, or find something else.